Susie, I have 4 kids. You and Matt do not have any. So this is going to be a drastically different conversation when it comes to our perspectives on kids and its effect on a marriage. But I will say this right now from the get go, having kids does not make a relationship better at all, especially when you're married.
That's an interesting. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about this because I don't think I've ever heard anybody say it before. But I mean, it's for Matt and I, we were happy that we're child free, and we can't imagine life. I know for us, we don't think kids would have made our lives better. Well, how was your week? Man, my week was good. Matt was traveling. He was in Vietnam working, and so I was home alone. My sister slept over with my nephews. That was a lot of fun. And
Mhm.
then, hung out with my big sister too. I kind of have to get out of the house and like make myself really busy because Matt and I both work from home. So when
Yeah.
he's not home, or vice versa, the other one is very lonely. And so we just have to keep ourselves busy and like get out of the house and stuff. And so that's what I did.
You
Spent
have
a
two
lot of
sisters.
I have two sisters, yep, an older and a younger.
Oh, cool. And the dynamic, what's that dynamic like? Because my sibling is younger than I am. I'm 45, she's 35, and she lives on the other side of the country. So there's not much like interaction there.
Is that
Yeah.
hard? Is that a bummer? Like, are you guys close?
This is a whole nother episode, but there's a lot of family baggage there that I feel like everybody's trying to work through currently.
Okay.
But no, we were never really close just because I think that our age has always separated us because we're 10 years apart. So when I was 15, she was 5. When she was 15, I was 25. So we were always in different stages of life. So there never was that bondness. But I feel like there was a part where we were close. So we aren't as close like anymore. I think we have different opinions on how some family dynamics have worked out as of late. I haven't reached out because I am trying to process a lot of the stuff that has happened as of late. And I'm not trying to go too much into it, which I would openly talk about all this stuff. But I think there are other people involved in this that I want to handle things first before I openly talk about it on this podcast. But I do at some point want to go back and kind of mend those fences because at the end of the day, like her and I are going to be the only ones left at some point, and I don't want to not have a relationship with her in the future.
Yeah, yeah, that's important. I mean, I the dynamic between my sisters and I hope this for you and your sister. They're my best friends. They really are. My little sister commutes to work. My older sister and I kind of, both work from home, but we still call each other.
Yeah.
My little sister, when she's in her car, calls the two of us like almost on a daily basis. So it's really beautiful, and I don't have, this episode is all about children. I don't have
Mm.
children. So my nephews, each sister has two boys. My older sister has a 25-year-old and an 8-year-old. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, kind of like you and your sister, like huge
Yeah.
age gap. And then my little sister has an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. And those are my babies. They're
Mm.
they're mine just as much as they're my sisters.
Yeah.
you know and they're very sweet boys, and I enjoy spending time with them.
Hearing you talk like that, it's something that I wish I had with my family, something I wish I had with my sister. And hopefully we can get to that point. Um,
Yeah.
I do feel like we can. I think what it's going to take is both of us being accountable for things that we have said, done in the past, in specifically with our viewpoints. And like, I am very good with seeing another side of things and taking accountability with what I have done. I think we both need to get to this point and have an open conversation about things and also go back into like, why we are the way that we are without pushing blame on one another.
Sure. Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm being very
Yeah.
not trying to offend, trying to, again, I'm taking
Yeah.
accountability for everything. I think we
Yeah.
should all be taking it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
love that you have that relationship with them. And like, and that's another thing. Like, now that this episode is about kids, I try to have open conversations about maybe things that are happening in my family dynamic that aren't so positive. So hopefully my kids avoid like ever going through that in the future. And like, just remembering at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. And there's going to be uncomfortable conversations you might have with a sibling at some point, but it's something that you can work through and always think about your sibling as your home team. So
Hell yes. That is such a really home team like that. That's such
Yeah.
a great way. And I think it's important to share that stuff with your kids too. Like I know when adults shared things with me, just knowing everybody's story, knowing even the hard stuff, like my
Mhm.
grandma used to tell me a lot of stories and my mom did too. And it helped me appreciate things and be more grateful for what I had when as growing up, as a kid and as a teenager, and certainly now as an adult, like being an adult and adulting every day, like putting myself in my mom's shoes, when she was my age, like now that I am that age, wow, like I've just gained this whole new like appreciation for, for my mother and gratitude for her. But um I just think it's important. A lot of times parents don't want to share certain things with their kids, because they're like, no, they don't need to know that stuff. They don't need to know the family trauma. And it's like, no, they should know.
Yeah.
They should. I think so anyway. I don't know. I just, as an adult, knowing all that family drama, I feel like I learned from it. Right. And, I have some uncles that, like, for the stupidest reasons, whether it's politics or just disagreements that they've had in the past, they don't really have a relationship now.
Mhm.
And it's a shame because they're getting older, and I can't imagine that happening with my sisters. It's like, man, that bond that you have, and especially for us, I mean, we grew up with a single mom and she passed away, gosh, in 2014. So what, 12, almost 12 years ago. It's going to be 12 years this year. And we're all we have, she was a single mom. So we don't have a dad, that's it, you know?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's
even
super
you
important.
saying that, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like I could have done better in the past. Yes. I feel like I should be doing better moving forward.
Yeah.
But I'm also in a place where everybody just needs to talk like openly. Like you saying all these things, I'm in the moment here being like, Jesus, you're so right. We need to stop wasting time here because you never know what tomorrow is going to bring. I know it sounds cliche, but that really is the truth. Me hearing that you lost your mom and and that part of it, like, listen, my mother's on the older end of things, and we just started kind of communicating again. I just talked to her for the first time in months the other day because I was dealing with something like at work, and like I needed my mother's perspective there. But you're so right. I need to stop BSing with everything and just get back to the foundation of like, let's fix this because we don't know how much time we have left.
For sure. It's funny. It's like it's true. It does sound cliche when you say it because you hear it all the time, right? But
Hmm.
it's just the truth, man. It's
Yeah.
the truth. And then when you also, I don't know if you've ever seen those like memes on Instagram, anywhere, social media, where, you know, I don't know, doctors or therapists interviewed like, 50, 90-year olds. And they ask them, like, when you look back at your life, like, what's the most important thing? They always say it's relationships. It's never, when they look back, it's not about how much money they had or how much money they didn't have or things, right? It's always about relationships. It's always about family. And there's chosen family too. When I say family, it's not just your blood. It's like friends that are, I mean, I have some friends that are closer to me than family
Memory.
members,
Yeah.
So your chosen family is just as important. It's just those relationships and that community that you create. But man, whatever you have lacked in your, like, with your parents and your siblings, you have certainly made up for it because you and
Yeah.
Joanne have created a small soccer team over there.
You know what's funny? Even thinking about that, whenever I think about how many kids I have, and I usually get the response of when people ask me, "What do you got for kids?" And I was like, four. They're like, "Oh wow, you have four," because this
That
day and
sounds
age,
like a lot.
it is. It's also because this day and age, people don't normally have four kids. Maybe back in the day you had a lot more, but now I feel like the average is two. People think two, and that was a good number. Thinking back, I think our plan was always to have two. But what happened is we went from one to three because we had a set of twins for two and three. But then after that, we were done. We were done after the third one. We had given all the baby stuff away. We were in the mindset like this is never gonna happen again. We're done with this stage. And I remember like feeling like, wow, I feel like I have my like life back. I feel like I'm able to do things. And then in 2016, we went on vacation to the Cape. I still remember it. We rented a house. We like life was good. Kids were going to bed at a decent time, but we still had time to like hang out as a couple and all that stuff. And It was 4th of July week. I got a bottle of wine. I drank the entire thing. And that night got carried away. And next thing you know, we're having a kid. And I was completely in shock. And I still remember like the night. I noticed my wife was being weird. It wasn't like she was acting weird, but she would look at me in weird ways. It was like something was on her mind, and there was like this little bit of a smirk, like behind it too. And I remember telling her like, something's up with you. You seem a little off. But I was laughing about things, and I don't even know what it could be. And then she came downstairs and was like, I need to talk to you. I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I need to talk. And I remember being on the couch, and my first thought that I had was, she cheated. Then my second thought was, how did she have the time? When did she do it? Who was the guy with? My like
Oh my God,
instantly
your
went
mind,
down, went
your
down this
mind was,
whole rabbit hole, because
wow.
she had never kind of presented me with any sort of like information like that my mind instantly went to that. And then her response, and to my relief, she said that she was pregnant. And I was like, oh, like, okay. And that was shocking. And I remember my first response being, I know I'm not reacting well to this. I will at some point, but I need time to process this because this was not in my bingo card. And that night I didn't sleep much. The next day it all had hit me like, all right, we know how to do this. We've done it before, but wow, this is shocking. And then fast forward, we have 4 kids, and you know, and life from that point on has been absolutely awesome in that regard. But I will say, like I said before, having that many kids or kids in general does not make a marriage easier. Um, it's definitely challenging. It adds a whole different dynamic to a relationship. And we've definitely had our ups and downs after the kids came along. But I will say, after we had our fourth, I think we were further along in life where we knew what was important when it comes to a relationship. And we just kind of like, he fit right into the family, and things have been awesome since that point on.
That's amazing. Did you guys always know you wanted children? Was that,
Yes.
yes?
Kids was always a part of the picture. It was just going to be like, how many? And then I think we got married young. So we got
Yeah.
married at 25.
So did you have that conversation before you got married? Like did you ask each other, how many kids do you want? How many kids, do you want kids? Like, did you have that conversation before you got married?
We had the conversation about kids. I don't think it was a formal conversation. I think we just always knew that we wanted kids. We
Okay.
never had specifically how many. I think in my mind, I wanted 3. I felt like she wanted 2,
Okay.
which was fine. I mean,
Why is that? Why 3 in your brain?
thinking back, I think it was because I always came from a family of 2, but more so, I always felt like an only child because I was 10 years older than my sister. So for at least half my life at that point, I was by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I always saw from the outside in a family dynamic that I always wanted from having siblings around the same age. So I always like, oh, it would be cool to have had two more around my same age. That way there was always going to be a bond there. So 3 for me felt like that.
Yep.
So it was 1 more than what I was used to. But then there never was a formal conversation up to that point. But then when we had our first, it was like, all right, so this is it. We waited 5 years to have our first, which was great. In that 5-year span, we did everything. We traveled a lot. We bought two houses. We did everything that wanted to do. And I said this on the last episode, but at the same time, I wasn't mature enough yet to understand the importance of a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I was still going out. I was still partying. But by the time I had my first, I like loved being a dad. And that was something that I figured out very quickly. Like, I love being a dad. It is absolutely like awesome. And then soon thereafter, 2 years after, we had 2 more, which was crazy.
How far apart are all the kids?
2 years. So my oldest right now is 16 and my daughters are 13. So they're about 2.5 years age difference there. That was a big adjustment, going from 1 to 3. Having a set of twins is not easy. It's really, really hard. And if I were to, I always hear people say, and I've experienced this too, having twins as your first children is probably easier because you have nothing to compare it to.
Sure.
I knew what it was like having 1, and then go from 1 to 3 was really difficult. And now everything is doubled. Changing the diapers is doubled. Feeding in the middle of the night is doubled. Carrying them is doubled. Feeding them is doubled. It's just double, double, double. And then you probably heard, and you know this from your sisters too, this doesn't go as planned. Like, everything isn't just easy. They don't just sit there and eat when they're supposed to. They don't sleep when they're supposed to, like all these things. So it was a lot of sleepless nights. It was a lot of like stress. And at the time, financially, we weren't really good.
Hmm.
So all these things were happening. Then we have three kids under three, and then we're trying to figure out our dynamic and our marriage and like navigating through that craziness. But it was a really challenging time. And obviously, if like those kids didn't come at that time, maybe things would have been simpler and easier, but they just did. So we're trying to manage through all of it.
Yeah.
So I would say looking back, going from one to three and dealing with everything that we were dealing with at the time was probably the hardest point in our marriage, in our relationship, and in our lives.
Wow. How old were you guys when you had all three?
334.
Okay.
So even at that point, like I didn't feel like, well, I know I wasn't where I wanted to be in life, I think.
Are we ever though?
No, but I
No.
think you might hit a point where you're like, all right, well, things are pretty good now, but I don't want to I'm not satisfied with this. I want to keep working towards another goal.
Yeah.
At that point, career wise for the both of us, we weren't where we wanted to be. We were taking these extra jobs on the side just to make some more money and just to kind of like, my wife was working in the business at one point, but then she was teaching on the side for some extra money, but then thinking about going into teaching and then doing this accounting stuff on the other end of things as well. I was trying to make my way on the radio, but at the same time, I was still trying to find hosting appearances like in Boston for decent money, but not like a ton. But I was still kind of grinding and driving down to Boston, coming home late, getting up in the middle of the night to go back to work. And all these things were kind of happening, but we're still trying to do this while raising these young kids. So from that aspect, like it wasn't so much fun. It wasn't a blast. There weren't moments of like, us sitting back and being like, wow, life is good. It just felt like there was a lot going on at the time. I felt like there was a lot of stress at the time. There was a lot of unknown. There was a lot of challenges I think we just navigated through, but we weren't really
Hmm.
happy.
Right. Right. Oh, I appreciate you being honest, because
Yeah.
so many people just are like, you don't know love until you
You
have
know,
kids. And I want you to speak to that because as somebody who doesn't, obviously, I have no idea. Like, I don't have children. But do you think that's true? That statement? Like, did you feel like you didn't know love truly until you had children? Because I would imagine that it's just a different type of love.
it's a different type of love. I knew love and I feel love. I feel like I love my wife. I love my family. I love my mom, like all these things. Like I love, but it's a different type of love. It's when it's your child, there's like you feel the love, but then you feel a sense of, at least I do, you feel a sense of like you're their parent. You feel like you have to take care of them. You feel like you need to be their advisor. You feel like you need to put the guardrails up for them so they don't mess up too much. And obviously the guardrails change as they age, but it's just a completely different kind of love. But so if you've ever been felt with people saying that you're not going to know real, like true love unless you have kids, I think that's completely false. It's just a different kind of love. So, but yeah, I mean, it was instantly they hand you this child in the hospital and they're like, take care of this now. So that's one part of it. But then like when when I held my son, I was like, oh my God, this feels like incredible. It feels different. It feels like magical. And then like you're kissing like your child on the forehead and all that stuff, and like, wow, this is mine.
Hmm.
So you feel all those elements in that specific type of love, but I don't think it takes away from any other. It's just a different emotion.
Yeah. Different emotion. Wow. And so, I've had some friends who, again, the honesty, always appreciate, I always appreciate it because not everyone has like the same experience but parenting. Okay, so I'll start here. I had a friend who actually she was a host on MTV with me, and I ran into her in LA, and she we were just like catching up real quick. Hadn't seen her in years, like literally since New York, and we then were both living in LA at the time. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm married. I have two kids." And I was like, "Wow, you have two kids?" And she's like, "Yeah." She points to her son who was sitting nearby, and he's like, "That's my son there, and I have a daughter." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's fantastic!" Like, and she's like, "Eh." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" It was such a weird reaction because I was like, "That's great. You have two kids," and she was like,
I mean,
and you know what she told me, Santi? She was like, "Look, I wish I would have stopped at one." She's like, "I love my daughter, but it too was just too much for me.
Yeah,
And
that
I
is
was
definitely.
like, I noted. Yeah,
Listen, there are people in this world who talk about having kids, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's so awesome," and they're in the bond, and they talk with that tone like it's just the best thing in the world. And you see these people on TikTok like all the time. Oh, being a mom is the great thing. Being a dad is so special in the warmth. I'm like,
right.
fine, I can understand that part of that. But you're crazy if you're not looking at the other thing end of things. Sometimes it really does suck. Sometimes it's not fun. There's a lot of it that there's so much, it's so stressful. There's all these elements. And sometimes your kid might be an asshole. And that's a reality of it. So
Sure.
yeah, it's not all good. So her saying that is very true and valid. It's you're living in a fantasy world if you think it's all like perfect, and it's not.
Right. What is what do you miss? Is there anything that you miss about life before kids?
Yeah. Just the freedom to do anything I want when I want. The freedom of just lying around. Well, now for me, it's a little bit different because my kids are older and I can sleep in like the morning, not have to worry
Yeah.
about getting up and making sure that they're fed.
Yes.
They're old enough where they can come downstairs, feed themselves, do their thing, and we don't have to get out of bed.
Yep.
But I will say I miss the freedom and the selfishness and not worrying about anything else besides me and my wife. If we want to go away for the weekend without a thought, we can go away for the weekend. Now, if we want to go away for the weekend, there's so much planning. Who's going to watch the kids? What's on the calendar for their sports schedule?
Mm.
Um,
That's right, because they're all very active, right?
like all these things. Is my mother-in-law around to at least be around? Can she come over here and stay for the weekend? Like all these parts. I miss the freedom of doing whatever I want
Yes.
at a drop of a dime, which does not happen like anymore. Like going out to dinner at this point now, like we can go out to dinner whenever we want, but now we're checking social schedules. Like my oldest is 16. Are you going to be home? And my daughter's a 13. Either like they have to be home because we have an 8-year-old.
Right.
So it's trying and still like logistically trying to figure out that part about the whole thing. Another
Yeah.
part I miss, traveling with 6 people is a challenge. Now, granted, them getting on airplanes and walking to the airport is so much easier than what it was, but logistically, like we gotta like now, hey, where would you guys like to go? We're thinking about going here. We need 2 hotel rooms for every place we go. Um, airfare is incredibly crazy now with 6 people. Thankfully, we benefited on like airline points and everything like that. But like the freedom of just me and my wife figuring out where we want to go for vacation and just like lying by the pool without a worry is not what it was. Like now we're lying by the pool. We're constantly having an eye out for them. We're making sure that they're all together at the same time. So I think when I boil it down, it's just the freedom to do whatever we want whenever we want is what I truly miss the most. Now I know that at some point we might get that in a different capacity, but that was the great thing about it when we were young. Like the trips to New York, like on the weekend when we just felt like going away was so great. And we would just go, we would just chill. We wouldn't have to think about anything. We have to find somebody to watch the dog, but that was easy.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing I miss the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freedom. If you were to give like advice to young people who like maybe an engaged couple or people thinking about getting engaged, like what's like your biggest piece of advice when it comes to having kids and just having that conversation before? Because I think it's so important to have that conversation before you're married, whether you want them or you don't. Just being honest with each other and upfront so that you know what your goals are for everything, right? Finances, owning a home, not owning a home, traveling, not traveling, kids, no kids. So like when it comes to the topic of kids, like what would you advise?
I've said this to people before and they think I'm crazy, is that you and your partner need to be more important to each other than the kids. You guys need to still date each other. You guys need to still focus on each other more than you actually do the kids, because what happens is that your life your life starts revolving around the kids and every emotion, and you stop dating your partner, you stop loving your partner, you stop being intimate with your partner because everything is based on the kids. And now when the kids are gone, you're left with like, wait, we've spent the last 20 something years not focused on each other. And then
Now
what
what do we
also
do?
happened? What?
It's like, now what do we do?
Yeah, now it's like I don't really like the person I'm looking at, and I actually don't know you. And then you get to know them, like, yeah, we've all changed and we don't like each other. So there's that part. But then the also part is like you cannot not stop dating your partner. Like you're married. You need to evolve together. You still need to build love with each other because the end of the day, you are still going to be married for a long time, at least if that's what the plan is. And also, you want to set a good example for all your kids. You want to see like you want to show your kids that you're affectionate, that you love each other. Say I love you. Like teach them how to take care of a partner and like set an example like that because they're always watching, they're always learning, and that way when they become older and they start dating, they know what they want out of life. They want somebody who treats them.
Right.
So at the end of the day, like, do not forget about your partner, and also make them a little bit more important than the kids. And I think people hate when I say that, but I think at the end of the day, like, listen, there's enough love for everybody to go around.
Yeah.
But find those moments to still focus on your partner just a little bit more.
Right. Right. Doesn't have to be 100%
No,
on the kids.
no. Like, listen, and I'm talking about more so at the moments. Like, listen, at the end of the night when you put the kids to bed, talk to your partner, get intimate with them, like still talk about your wants and needs in the bedroom, all these things that are always going to be evolving the older you get and stuff, like that. I just think what happens not most of the time, what happens a lot of the time, you end up focusing on your child and making your kids the center of the universe, which is great. But you forget about your partner. You forget that they are also just as important. And then that relationship starts to lose its sparkle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a dangerous thing to happen.
For sure.
And I see it all the time. We had friends over the other night. Their circle revolves around their daughter, and they do not really like each other like anymore because they don't focus on each other. Them being alone together is really uncomfortable. There's always a package deal with them. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's sad.
That's a bummer.
So
that is sad to see.
just going back to my last thing too, like going away, it's harder when you have kids, but still find those moments to do so because like
Yeah.
when you're alone with your husband, wife, and then you realize that like I don't really like them anymore. That's a tough thing to deal with.
Yeah.
And it happens.
Oh my gosh, that is so hard. Man, I mean, I remember Matt and I having the conversation like I think before we even got engaged, because
Mhm.
we were very committed to each other like pretty quickly in our relationship. But before we were even engaged, afterwards we had conversations about whether or not we wanted them, and neither one of us wanted children. And we were shocked. We're like, "What? You don't want a kid?" We're like, "I don't either," And so that was great. And then it got to a point where for us, I mean, you had your first kid, you were in your 20s, right?
I
Late
was
20s?
29, 30. Yeah.
Okay. So like we just went through life like not we were traveling a ton, work took us all over the place. New York. I mean, we moved from New York to LA like four times. I moved to New York one, two, three times. Moved across the country, from like in our 20s and 30s. So, and always constantly, traveling for work, and then for fun, vacation. And we loved our life, that way. And then there was something, I think more so in me than in Matt, that was like, I don't know if it was FOMO or what, honestly, like, because I'm like, if we is like, let's really give this some thought. Because when we were in our like mid 30s, I said to Matt, I'm like, it's now or never. Like, the window is closing if we want to have a kid or not. And then when we were like, okay, maybe we're like, we're just going to do one and call it a day. I said, we can't be outnumbered by our children.
Yeah.
And we're like, we have to outnumber them. So just one. And also, because we like to travel so much, we're like, it'll just be easier with one kid. Right. And we thought about it. We couldn't come up with a good reason to have a kid. Like that was, we always went back to it. And, with every decision in life, you think about it, right? Like you meditate on it. And I'm like, this is such a huge decision that's going to change our lives for the rest of our lives. And it's like, most things, you go to the store, you buy something. If you don't like it, you can return it.
Yeah.
You can't return a kid.
No.
Like you're stuck with it. And you don't know if parenting is going to be good for you or not. You don't know if you're going to enjoy it until you're there. And at that point, if you love it or hate it, you're doing it. Like it just is what it is. And that really scared the crap out of us. You mentioned, you're like, your kid could be an asshole too. Matt kept saying that because I was like, oh, because one of the reasons I thought about was like, well, in terms of why have a kid, I was like, okay, well, as my mom got older, like we took care of her, right? So if we don't have a kid, who's going to take care of us? And Matt's like, there's no guarantee that our kid's going to take care of us when we get
It's
older.
very true.
Like if they are an asshole, right? And when you think about the whole nature versus nurture thing, right? They might just be an asshole, and then what?
Yeah, that's very true.
And then you got nobody taking care of you. And meanwhile, and you had a kid for that reason.
Yeah.
We couldn't think of a good reason why to have them.
But I feel like it's great that you guys are on the same page, and I think that's always like the important part about it. But
Yeah.
and I want to ask you. I have to assume, and this is just the way that people are, and I feel like some people just cross the line in the sense of like when you say you don't have kids to people, is their reaction usually like, "Oh, good."
Yeah, no. I haven't had that. I haven't had that. I have seen. I have friends who are also child free who have had that kind of situation happen. I come from a Latin family. I mean, I saw my aunt who I hadn't seen. She lives in Puerto Rico and she was visiting, and we saw her over, I think it was during like last November or something. She was visiting, and she was like, Susie, ¿cuándo vas? I was like, no, Didi, I'm not having kids, but she was just like, kind of like, when are you giving me a niece or nephew? I'm like, why, like, just no. Like, why are you saying that? I just feel like it's such a personal thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, and for Matt and I, so when we did all this soul searching and couldn't figure out a good reason why, we started to think about each other and our relationship, and we have a great relationship and we love experiencing things together, and we're like, okay, this is like the one thing that, do we want to just have this experience together, whether we end up loving it or hating it, right? Because we got to be open to that, because we're stuck with this child, like if we have one, right? And there's no refunds. And then we actually at one point were like, okay, like let's try and see what happens. And it's so crazy, Santi, because we tried, couldn't. I go to the doctor. She tells me that this was like the first time I went to this doctor too. She was like, oh my gosh, she's like, I hate to tell you this. Like, this is the first time you're meeting me, but she's like, I think you need surgery because you have endometriosis. And I was like, what? Like, I have friends who have endometriosis who like have like a ton of pain. Like it like physically affects them, right? I never had anything like that. And she's like, well, your only symptom, thankfully, is you won't get pregnant because you have these 2 cysts and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh. So talk to Matt. And we're like, well, let's get the surgery and see what happens. I get the surgery. This is crazy. For something I don't even know if I want in my life. I was like, okay, let's do it. I'm also the kind of person that when I decide to do something, I'm like, okay, doing it 100 miles an hour. Like, let's do it. You know what I'm saying? And I get the surgery. I end up getting pregnant, have a miscarriage. I had 5 miscarriages.
Oh my God.
Yes, I had 5 miscarriages. And it was a very traumatic time in my life, and obviously in Matt's life too, because we got to the point where we're like, okay, yeah, let's do this, right? And then it wasn't happening. And went to 2 different fertility clinics. We were like super close. Like it got to the point where the next step would have been egg donation. And my sweet little sister was like, you can have my eggs. I don't need them. Like she had her 2 boys, right? And she talked to her husband. We had a convo with our fertility doctor at the time. Like we were really considering it. And then we kind of took a step back and we're like, this is something we very carefully for years thought about doing. We never came up with a good reason why we wanted to be parents. And 2, we are having so many like these issues, right, that have come up. 5 miscarriages later, we're like, maybe this is the universe telling us
Mm.
your initial gut instinct is correct. Like, this isn't for you, you know? And that was something that we both we grieved, you know? There was like a grieving process that happened with that. And also the excitement too, right? Of like getting pregnant and then not being pregnant and then getting
Yeah.
pregnant and not being pregnant. Like the craziest roller coaster of my life, Santi. Like, and for Matt as well. And then ultimately we decided not to go through with the like egg donation, IVF, like doing all of that, because we just in our guts we're like, we don't want a child that bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And coming to that realization and just putting an end to the roller coaster that we were on, you know, like I said, it felt good, but also there was like a grieving period after that, right?
Yeah.
That this was something that we would never experience. And I know there's other ways that you can, you know, you can adopt, you can do, but ultimately what we realize is that we didn't want to be parents that bad, right? I mean, I have friends who dreamt about being a mother since they were, you know, very young, and now have, you know, I have one of my best friends has 4 kids as well. Similarly to you, first, except her twins came first. So
Oh,
they had,
perfect. That's like the
yeah,
best way.
yeah, that's what she always says. She was like, I don't know that I would have been able to do this if I had 1 and then 2, but so she had her first that was twins, and you know, and then two other pregnancies. So she has 4 kids, and you know, and all the kids were born from IVF, and she wanted to go through that. She would do it again. Like she just wanted to, motherhood was her thing. She wanted to be a mom so badly. I never had that. You know, if I did, I would have gone through with it. I mean, I had, you know, my sweet sister to give me her egg, you know, she was donating her eggs, which is, I mean, what a gift, right? I mean, I have
Yeah.
friends who like have spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? To like do the whole egg donation thing. And yeah, and that was like, that was my journey. I mean, I would have had, I don't know. I'm glad we did it though, because I
Yeah.
feel like I gave it the, you know, we gave it a try and it didn't work out, you know, but I think it's for the best. Like I really do think like now I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like I had the flu or some virus last month, and I'm like, and when in those moments when I'm really sick, I'm like, I can't imagine having a kid right
Oh
now.
yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
even get out of bed. Like, God bless
It's
you guys. I don't know how you do it. I'm like, how do you do it? You like through anything that you're going through, you still have to get up. You
yes.
still have to take care of your kids. They still have to get to
Yeah.
school. They need, you know, they have their own thing. They need to be fed. Like, it's an amazing thing.
And
Being
then
a
you're forgetting
parent.
the part of like when they get sick, what that's like, and that's like a whole nother thing. You know, it's
Yeah.
interesting that you had this feeling, right? But I
Mhm.
wonder if more people feel the way that you do, but then they're kind of shaped by society's perception of what life should be like. They feel
Yeah.
like they just need to be parents or they have to have kids because that's the next natural progression. But I
Honestly,
respect the fact
I
that you
felt
guys,
that.
what?
We felt that. We definitely felt that. It wasn't like it was a little bit of, you know, there was a little like we could hear that chatter, you
Yes.
know, like this is the next thing. This is what you do. People like, I don't know.
Which is
Part of me
kind of
hates.
unfair to put like, you know, society's perception on somebody else, but then also like one's opinions and all this stuff. I think we're in a world where like people are fine with choosing what they want from their own past, but it's still out there. And like, I wonder now how many parents are out there who just turn out to be bad parents because at the end of the day, they didn't want kids, but they felt like they like had to. Where if you just like, you know, and I love the fact that you and Matt came to this thing together and you guys kind of like mutually like agreed on all this stuff because I don't know if it ever happens. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure how what the percentage of I don't know it's happens as often the way that you guys do it as it should probably where like I feel like one partner might want kids, the other one doesn't. It causes this whole thing and resentment where you guys mutually are on the same page. And I think that's so important.
Yeah. Well, you know, Matt, you know, it's funny because we've had conversations, and even back then, obviously, I mean, Matt and I we we're great communicators. You know,
Mm,
we talk a lot to each other about everything, and you know, no secrets. Like we just share as much as possible. And one of the things he said, he was like, look, you wanted to stop this like months ago, I would have been on track. He's like, I feel like you want a baby more than me. But I love you. And I think it'll be a beautiful experience if we do have a child. And like, so he's like, so I was on board, if this is something that you think is going to be really good for us, like, I'm all ears. Like I want to do that with you. But at the same time, he was very supportive and and he was great when I was like, okay, I think we've had enough. I've had enough anyway. It's well, because the other thing is that it's like there's very little that he has to do. It's like the woman has to do everything, right? Like I was like at the IVF clinic, like it felt like every other day, getting a shot, getting blood work, getting something done, and oh my God, and the amount of like supplements and acupuncture and all of this stuff that I did to like, because kept having these miscarriages, right? So like people were like, you gotta go to this Chinese guy in LA, like he'll and he actually, it's funny because I got all this blood work done and the acupuncture really did help my my numbers get better to a point where but it just because I would continue to have miscarriages like that, basically told the doctors like it's not about getting pregnant, you're getting pregnant but you're not. Every time I did the testing afterwards, it was always like a genetic issue, which meant that the quality of my eggs, because of my age, like, we were like so busy having fun that we're like, by the time we were like, okay, like it's now or never, that was, it was just, it was too late for me. But then also I will say for anybody out there who is listening and does want children and you end up finding out that you need some sort of laparoscopic surgery to remove, for me, it was endometriosis. And I was told I would never get pregnant if I did not have this surgery. There are two different ways that they can do the surgery. And this particular doctor did the laparoscopic surgery with a laser, I guess. It's less invasive because they do little incisions on your abdomen as opposed to like a bigger, almost like C-section type to reach the area where they have to remove stuff. I don't know if this is getting too clinical and like crazy, but I think it'll be helpful. So one of the things I learned was that there's the what is it called? Anti-Mullerian hormone, AMH, which you want that to be hot, like the higher the number, the higher quality, like your ovarian reserve is, right? And that number plummeted after my laparoscopic surgery. And the acupuncturist told me, well, who knows if this is true or not, but the number did plummet. And people were always like, that's so weird. Like other friends that went through IVF that knew all about those numbers were like, this doesn't even make sense. Like how this month it could be this high and then it could be like, maybe they made a mistake. And I'm like, well, no, because then it was like measured later and it was pretty consistent. And so the acupuncturist said that he's like, they should have done that that surgery to remove those cysts. They should have done that surgery the old school way, because the new school is they use these lasers to remove the endometriosis, and the heat from the laser basically like kills your eggs. Oh. And I'm like, what? Like, how is that even? So that is what that's why that number jumped so high after or went so low, I should say, that why there was such a big jump. So anyway, just putting it out there. If anybody has endometriosis and they have to have laparoscopic surgery, make sure you talk to your doctor about the different methods there are for that surgery, because it could mean, a difference. It could make a difference if you do want kids.
Here's the thing. I don't think you talking about this is a bad thing. I think you even talking about your miscarriages, I think it helps out a lot of people. I didn't realize this, but this is as a man. I had a friend that went through miscarriages the last 5 years. She had 2 of them. She spoke about this on the radio. The amount of people that she reached that were struggling with this and dealing with this silently, I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, no, the more women like you talk about this and talk about your struggles, the more you're helping people out there who don't know, they don't have somebody to talk to about this. They feel whatever they feel based off this. I think it's amazing that you're doing this. And I promise you that you are helping out so many people on that end of things. So I commend you for speaking openly about both those struggles.
Thanks. No, I think it's so important to share this stuff with people, and because it's also a very I remember it being a very lonely roller coaster.
Yes.
Even though I had my loving husband with me along, it's like a lot of what happens to women during those times, whether it's going through IVF or, having miscarriages, it's happening to you, it's happening to your body. And so it's very lonely. It felt like a lonely experience, and so talking to other women about it was always very, very helpful. And you find strength in each other and in those stories that you hear from other women. So yeah, I'll always talk about it. I'll always talk about it, but I will always also say that, cut to however many years it's been later, 6 years. Um, I'm kind of, I don't know, this is weird to say, but I'm glad it happened the way it happened, because I don't think, as much as I think, Matt and I are good people, we love people, we work really hard, love family and love community, but we just don't think parenthood was for us. Man, and I think, that whole thing, again, not to sound cliche, but
Yeah.
the whole everything happens for a reason
Yes.
thing, I really do feel, Santi, in my heart that is the case with us with
And
this.
that's okay. And I think that's a great thing too. It's like, listen, we're
Yes.
both, you and I are on both, we're on different paths to this marriage thing. But at
Yeah.
the same time, whatever works for you and Matt may not work for me and my wife, but regardless, it works for our specific marriages, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely, man.
Right. Okay, so I think that's a good endpoint. Do you want to transition into the highs and the lows and put an end on that? Because I feel like no matter what you just did was really great, and I truly mean that. Like you went, you're gonna help out so many people, and I mean this because Ashley, who I work with, just dealt with this on the air, and like all these
She did.
women daily would reach out to her. Thank you for speaking about this. I'm in my car right now dealing with this alone, and just like
Aw.
you said, it's really good. So when you were like, I don't know if this is too clinical, I'm like, no, go. Like this is like these are the things that people don't want to talk about, and they're gonna and
Yeah.
the vulnerability that we've already gone into in these 2 episodes is great. So
Yeah.
I think, Susie, that was awesome. That was amazing.
Thank you. And likewise, like for you, like just talking about all the hard part of it. Because it's
Yeah.
so true. It's like people maybe, I think parents feel guilty sometimes, like they don't want to say that parenthood is
Yes.
hard, or they don't, I always I laugh because I think it's funny, but of course you have a favorite kid. Like I'm sure you have a favorite child. I won't
Yes, I
ask you.
do.
You do. Okay. I won't ask you who they are. But like I've had friends who are like, yeah, this one's my favorite. I'm like, what? How can you say that? And they're like, it's just the truth. They're different people. Like
They
these
are.
children are different people. And this one's definitely my favorite, and they'll say it like, they'll whisper it to me, but they'll say it. And it's just, I always am so, I'm proud of people for speaking their truth and living their truth. And it's okay, love them all, but
Yeah.
well, Santi, to wrap things up, I mean, I always like to ask my friends that have like multiple kids who their favorite is. You don't have to name names. Let's not put your other kids on blast, but do you have a favorite child?
I do have a favorite, and I will name them.
No, because how
Okay.
will the other ones feel?
I think all the other ones would know about this. So let me explain first. The love for all my kids is all the same. I love them all like the same. I don't love one more than the other. But I do have a favorite, and here's why. This one is the easiest child I have. They're always willing to help out, to do things that we need. They're always ready on time. They don't complain about everything. They're just by far the easiest. They get the best grades. Everything about them is easy, simple. Her name is Madison. She's easygoing. She takes care of everybody in like the house. She gets everybody dressed. She makes sure that everybody's on time. She takes care of her younger sister. They're a set of twins, but she's always the responsible one. So she gives me the less stress out of all of them. And that is why she is my favorite. And I'm sure my kids are not going to like it, but they're also going to know that deep down that they probably have they felt this sort of sentiment. Now, here's the other thing. I love you guys all the same. Madison is just the easiest one.
Okay. Is Madison the first one?
Madison is the older twin. She's a minute older than her sister.
Oh,
So,
okay. She's one of the twins.
yeah, so they're fraternal twins, so they're different. Their personalities different. They look different, but like, yeah, she is just very easy. She is the one that's most like my wife. Very responsible, takes care of the house. If I ask her to wrap these 10 presents, she'll get up, she'll wrap the presents, won't complain about anything. Where some of the other ones, like I asked my older son to take out the trash and it takes him hours to take out the trash. And he gives us a bunch of grief about it. And then so that's that. So yeah.
Yeah. It's the Madison.
And then here's the thing, though. A lot of parents won't admit to this. They will never admit that they have a favorite child. No. But it's the reality. Everybody has a favorite. Now, the love is the same. And I think some people will confuse the two, but we all have our favorite. It's like if you had a bunch of dogs, right? Like one might kind of like, you might like one more than the other. It's just like the same thing.
Yeah. I had two dogs at the same time. I certainly had, there was one that I liked.
Yeah. Right.
But I love them both. You're right.
Yes. That's exactly it. So,
yes. Yeah. Too funny. Good stuff. Well, listen, thank you. I want to thank all of our listeners, the folks that are out there listening. And if you have any questions, DM us on socials. You can find us everywhere. It's our handle is Spouseology Pod. It's spouse and then ology pod. Send us questions. We'd love to answer your questions. I think that'd be great to like answer like listener questions at the top of like future episodes. That would be fun. What else, Santi?
No, I think that's a great way. I think it's also a great way for people to stay anonymous and to openly have conversations that they want to hear, because they might not feel comfortable with specific people in their own lives going to them with either a relationship problem, an intimacy issue, or anything like that. If they DM us, we can kind of cover that here. So
yeah, for sure. So yeah, guys, and leave us a review, subscribe, all the things. Thanks so much for listening.